Welcome to Our Hometown, where we take a look at the people and places that make Brunswick County unique. Today we welcome Lindsay Mayer from the Brunswick Wellness Coalition. Also, we'll meet local author Dr. Thomas Kelso and talk about his new novel, Fractured. So stay tuned for more of Our Hometown. My guest is Lindsay Mayer. Lindsay is with the Brunswick Wellness Coalition. Lindsay, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
The Brunswick Wellness Coalition is fairly new. Tell us just a little bit about it, and then we'll get into some specifics.
Sure. The Brunswick Wellness Coalition was established, like you said, just about a year ago, thanks to a grant that Dosher Memorial Hospital submitted to the Duke Endowment. They were awarded in a total of $450,000.
Wow.
Yeah, over a 3-year period. Okay. So we're going to use that funding to promote active living and healthy eating throughout the county.
Wow. I have lots of questions.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you for just a second. You're the executive director, and you've just recently taken on that position.
Yeah.
And you will have, I don't want to call them a board, but members that are part of the Wellness Coalition to be determined. Is that correct?
We're growing, and more members are coming aboard every day.
Okay. Lindsay, tell us about the mission of the Brunswick Wellness Program.
Sure. The mission of the Brunswick Wellness Coalition is to improve the health of the Brunswick County community with the vision of becoming the healthiest county in North Carolina.
That's an ambitious goal, but a great goal.
Yeah.
It's long-term, but it involves a lot of short-term efforts to get there, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We have two main strategies. One is providing education to the community focused on healthy eating, active living. And two is being that resource to connect individuals and communities to healthcare services.
You're a facilitator.
Absolutely, building bridges.
Correct, that's a good term. Let's talk about some of the programs that other counties, other counties are involved in the statewide wellness program. Is that correct?
Yes, Brunswick County is just one of 10 counties that have received the funding from Duke Endowment. Brunswick County is actually in the second cohort of the counties, so there's 5 counties in cohort 1 that have finished their 3-year term and are actually applying for another 3-year term.
Counties that we can learn from.
Counties that we can learn from, and we work quarterly actually by sharing information and best practices so we can truly make a difference in each of our counties.
Let's talk about some possible programs. Obviously, getting out every day and exercising, eating well. How do you turn those broad concepts into specifics? How do we get our citizenry out to be active in these areas?
Yeah, well, you know, we're in a landscape today with healthcare that's no longer about people coming to our hospitals or clinics. We need to go out into the communities,
right.
Get outside our 4 walls. So we want to work with individuals that are part of faith-based groups. Maybe it's at their work site, maybe it's at their neighborhood clubhouse, but we want to come to you and learn what your needs are. Maybe it is that you want to learn more about how to cook healthy, and you have a few families that want to learn that. Maybe you have a faith community that wants to learn how to eat on a budget. And we'll come in with the resources and the program to help educate and hopefully improve those lifestyle improve on those lifestyles that really help us reduce our risk for developing some chronic diseases later in life.
You mentioned several opportunities. For example, at the governmental complex, we have a large number of folks there. We could have programs there. Faith-based churches could be involved. Local communities could get involved. The organizations are limitless.
It really
is.
To
me.
Yeah. As long as there's a group that is willing to learn and wants to be a partner improving the health of this community, we are that partner. So we hope that you get involved, and there's many ways to do that, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Any other example? That's a great example.
Yeah, I mean, and with that, we're looking at obesity rates and overall just quality of life. So the hospital Dosher Memorial Hospital conducts a community health needs assessment every 3 years. So we're using those surveys, respondents, again from the community, to measure how they feel about their health.
And when we talk about these chronic diseases, whether it's heart disease or diabetes or whatever, so many of them respond to the same program of exercise, good diet, and I'm sure there are a few others.
Jim, I'm so glad you said that. Absolutely. These chronic...
There's a commonality, I'm sorry.
It is. I mean, you can call them diet diseases. Well, what we consume, what we put in our body very much impacts our risk of developing heart disease, hypertension, obesity, diabetes. And these are costly. So if we can do these small, simple lifestyle changes, like you said, eating better, living a more healthy lifestyle, we could really reverse our risk.
We also live in a beach community where a great lifestyle is very workable. There are areas of the country where it's much more difficult than it is here.
It is.
Can we say that?
Yeah, we need to take advantage of our beautiful weather, and even just a 10-minute walk 3 times a day, enjoying, like you said, going and taking a walk on the beach or through some of the beautiful fields out in more of our rural areas. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities to get outside and just enjoy nature, and simple steps, small steps leads to better outcomes.
Right, let's say that again, because really small steps done over a long period of time create a great result.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
At ATMC, we know that fast, reliable internet is essential to connecting our local community to a better future. That's why we're investing millions to bring faster internet to members living in Brunswick County's most rural areas. We call this Project 2019 because in the next 24 months, over 4,000 of our members will have access to internet speeds up to 50 times faster than today. Because when it comes to doing right by our members, it's all about you.
All right, welcome back. We're with Lindsay Mayer of the Brunswick Wellness Coalition. Lindsay, let's talk about some other specifics, but one of the things that comes to my mind is students, young kids of all ages. We're all kids perhaps, but let's talk about early intervention and how your program deals with the school system and the kids that are in the school system.
Yeah, that kids really are they're the generation of the future, and so we
It's trite to say that, but it's so true.
It is.
It is true.
It is, and so we do need to instill healthy behaviors at that young age so they can continue them into adulthood. So we have several members working in the schools today. The Cooperative Extension offers programs like Steps to Health to elementary schools. And they also have community gardens, which is exciting. Right. So for the coalition, it's how can we expand those programs to more kids? And how can we provide after-school activities or extracurricular activities to more children? So we're working with towns and, like you said, the school system to see how we can partner.
Yeah, the towns, the municipalities are an important opportunity. A term that you used that I'm just learning about is what we call food access. Oh, yeah. And I know that's a generic term, but let's talk about that a little bit because it does have a meaning and an importance.
Yes, Jim, so that's a much broader picture for the coalition, and when we talk about food access, we want to learn or try to work with individuals that don't have access to healthy foods today. And why is that? Is it their environment? Is there just a corner store that doesn't have access to healthy food?
Some of it is just locality.
Location.
Proximity to a good food or good health.
Yeah, even looking at the cafeteria in our schools and our work sites, and even our vending machines, and saying how can we provide a variety of food, and more specifically nutrients-dense food, quality food, and removing the excess or the junk from
nutrients-dense food.
Yes,
it's a great term. I like that. You used the term food desert, and that struck me also because indeed there are areas in this county where proximity to healthy foods is difficult.
It is. Brunswick County is the 7th largest county in North Carolina. It's about 860 square miles.
It's a huge county.
it's a big county, and if you don't have transportation, or if you can't, if you don't have a vehicle to get you to further distances, it makes it very challenging. And so that's why Brunswick County does have food deserts. So we need to look at all levels of mobility and make sure we can connect individuals to those areas that have nutrient-dense foods available.
One of the things I read in your literature was working with local convenience stores and small shops to see that they have the offering of nutrient-dense foods.
Yes, that Healthy Corner Stores is an initiative that several counties have taken on, where they do work with local mom and pop shops to survey the food that they have, whether that's some sort of cafeteria or just vending, and trying to work with them to provide more healthy options or alternatives.
It's a very small example, but last week I was in a convenience store, and in lieu of the candy bar or the other sugary, they had bananas. I bought 3 bananas and I was on my way. You don't see much of that, but there's the opportunity to have much more of that.
Yeah, and another good example of a food access point is food pantries.
Good.
There's so many generous people out there that are giving and donating to food pantries, but we want to educate people on how to give healthy. So rather than enriched pasta or white pasta, we're providing whole grain. If we're getting canned soup or beans, that we're going for reduced sodium.
Good. Those are good examples.
Yeah. So we're, again, wherever walks of life you come from, we want to make sure you have that access to nutrient-dense food. It's very important because, again, what we eat very much impacts our level of risk later in life. Yeah.
One of the items that I saw in your literature was a red tablecloth policy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I think it's interesting.
Easy to do, whether you're at church, and church. I grew up in a church that loved doing potlucks. Everyone would bring their homemade food, and in the South, it's comfort food. So what's great about the red tablecloth is that you designate an area by simply putting down a red tablecloth and putting all the healthier options on that tablecloth.
Sure.
So you still have the comfort food there, but it makes it easy for people to see what's available, because a lot of us don't know. So that makes it easier. It's a visual for everyone to say, okay, that's where the healthy food is. And maybe when they go up for seconds, rather than going to that comfort food table, they redirect to the red tablecloth.
Such a simple concept.
Yeah.
But so effective as well.
Yeah, and that's where the coalition, with our resources, we could take that one step further and maybe make table tent cards that show the nutrient breakdown of the food.
Sure.
Providing recipes, saying here's some options that you can offer on the red tablecloth.
All right. Hopefully we've inspired our viewers to be in touch. So let's provide contact information.
Yes, so you can email me directly at lindsaymayer@dosher.org.
Let's spell your last name, please.
Maher, and Lindsay is with an A.
Thank you.
I would love for you all to follow us on social media, so facebook.com/Brunswick Wellness. That's really a great way to stay up to date. We're also on Instagram and Twitter with the same handle.
And the website's on the way.
The website's on its way, and it's going to be brunswickwellness.org. So
Right.
very simple, but if you connect with us on Facebook, you'll know when that website's up and running, and it really will be our one-stop shop for all wellness services in the county.
Lindsay Mayer, you're going to do a great job. Your organization is going to have a lot of success, and I know that years from now we'll look back and think that this was a great beginning.
Thanks, Jim. I
Thanks for
appreciate
being
that.
with us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
At ATMC, we know that fast, reliable internet is essential to connecting our local community to a better future. That's why we're investing millions to bring faster internet to members living in Brunswick County's most rural areas. We call this Project 2019 because in the next 24 months, over 4,000 of our members will have access to internet speeds up to 50 times faster than today. Because when it comes to doing right by our members, it's all about you.
My guest is Dr. Tom Kelso. Dr. Kelso is also a writer, and we've asked him to be here today to talk about his relatively new career in writing. Welcome to our show, Tom.
Thank you, Dan. It's nice to be here today.
Well, first let's let our audience know that you're an orthopedic physician.
Yes.
Am I right?
Correct.
And that's your full-time job?
That's my full-time job. Do it every day of the week almost.
Right. But you've taken up writing sometime in recent years. How recently?
About 3.5 years ago is when I started.
All right. I have a lot of questions for you. Let's assume I'm an aspiring writer, but haven't gotten to your point yet, so I have a lot to learn. When did you get the idea that you were either a good writer or writing was interesting to you?
Well, I think that dates back to my childhood. You know, I've always enjoyed writing. I've always had sort of a literary bent to my interests and my
Sure,
desires. I
sure.
was born in a family of voracious readers. I can tell you I can't remember a time when my mother didn't have a book that she was reading, and that sort of kind of rubbed off on me and my brother and sisters. So we were always reading. I enjoyed writing. I knew I was a decent writer early on, and I minored in English in college and thought
Well,
about...
that's very relevant, isn't it?
I actually
Yeah.
at times thought about doing graduate work in English, but ended up going into science and going to medical school eventually.
All
So,
right. We want to talk about is this your first book?
first book, yes.
All right. But let's go back a little before that. Did you write short stories? Have you had an idea about this book for years? Tell us how all this came about.
Well, I really had, my life has sort of been focused on medicine for the last
Sure.
three decades.
Sure.
And prior to that, I thought I was going to be a college professor, and I got a PhD in physiology before I went to medical school. And that was done out at Washington State University. And I did a lot of technical writing. I would publish research papers
Okay.
and academic book chapters and things of that nature. But writing fiction was really something I never thought about. And I never wrote short stories or poems or anything like that. But it's something I've always wanted to do. I said, I want to write a novel. I wanted to do that when I was young. I just never got around to
Well,
doing it.
I admire that. I've always felt that I have a book in me,
Yes.
but it hasn't come out yet, and I'm glad that yours has.
Well, I did. I sort of felt that way, and I wrote a master's thesis and a PhD dissertation. I said, well, I've checked the box. I've written a book,
Right,
but
yeah.
it's not the same thing. Technical writing is completely different,
Sure it
totally
is.
worlds of difference than writing fiction.
All right. When did you get the germ of the book? We can see here that the name of the book is Fractured. We know that now. It's a very good visual. But when did the idea begin?
So about 4 years ago, one of my college roommates, a guy named John Highbush, sent me a rough draft of a manuscript that he had written.
Okay.
And he went, and I read it, and I critiqued it for him, and he and I were very close during college, and we went to a lot of classes together. And I said, if John can do this, I can do it. And then I started trying to figure out a story that would, basically be something that that would sort of play to my strengths in terms of medical technology, because I've always liked Michael Crichton. He's sort of my
Sure.
hero if I have a
Passed
writer
away
here.
a few years ago.
Yep, he did.
Yeah, sadly. Yeah.
At a young age.
Yeah,
But-
right.
So about 3.5 years ago, I just sat down and started writing the story out.
All right, you've given our readers a clue already, and that is that your book relates to your knowledge of the medical profession. Am I right?
Correct.
All right. And the advice for aspiring writers is to write about what you know.
That advice dates I don't know how many years back, but I think it's true.
I
think
do too.
Some people will tell you, write what you don't know because it makes you learn something and do research. But I think you really can't write with true authenticity unless you have some strong background on what you're trying to write about.
Give our viewers a nutshell summary of the plot.
So the plot, the hero of the book is an orthopedic surgeon named Mark Thurman. And Mark is a trauma surgeon at a level 1 trauma center, and a fictional one, but it's in Raleigh. And he has, prior to taking this job, he was in the military, and he was medically discharged from the military, and so he started a civilian career. While he was in the military, though, he worked with the Navy SEALs and Special Forces. And one day he's in Raleigh and gets called, or early one morning he gets called to the emergency room for a trauma alert. He works for the orthopedic trauma service there. And he goes in and he sees this guy who's been shot. But he thinks he recognizes him, and it turns out he was one of the SEALs that he took care of when he was in the Navy.
I see.
Now, Mark's not a SEAL, but he was assigned to taking care of the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, which is the elite SEALs in the Navy. And so there's a mystery about how this guy ends up getting shot, and then Mark gets pulled into it, saving him using some interesting medical, cutting-edge medicine that he is an expert in. But also the bad guys start coming back, and
that's where the conflict kicks in,
That's the
because
conflict.
I'm told every great novel has to have a lot of give and take conflict.
yeah, so the bad guys who did the shooting of his friend are coming back, and Mark and his research partner are trying to save him, and they get pulled into being involved in trying to save his life.
Yeah.
And theirs, ultimately.
Yeah, great. I won't ask you about the ending.
I don't want to give it. I don't want to give it spoiler alerts.
Right, absolutely. How did you write? Did you write a few pages a day? Do you write in spurts? Are you a prolific writer and then take some time off? How does it work for
Now,
you?
For me, it's a discipline. You have to really do it every day. And I just made it a personal goal. I'm going to write something every day. My wife and I have been married almost 40 years now, so she puts up with me, and she lets me after dinner. I'll go up and sit at my desk and write for an hour or two, and then I do big chunks of writing on the weekends. So I'll get up early on Saturday morning, Sunday before going to church. I'll get up early and write. And that's where, I'll go from 7 o'clock Saturday morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and really get a lot of work done in those days. But otherwise, during the week, I'm writing a couple of hours each night.
Yeah.
And then, there's the process. You got to get a rough draft down first.
Right.
And so it took me probably 6 or 8 months to write the rough draft, and it was a much longer draft than what it is now, because you end up writing a lot of stuff that you end up cutting later. But and that's really the toughest part, because once you get that rough draft down, then you go back and
Right.
I start
Right.
editing and going through it and tightening up the story and figuring out what scenes are needed and what scenes need to be cut. And then you have to get good helpers. I mean, you've got to have.
Sure.
I'm a member of a writers group in the St. James area. I hired some professional editors to help me write it. And then later on, once it was selected by Amazon, their editorial staff went through it again. So it's a lot of that.
I don't want to go to the ending, but I want to ask this question. Did you write with the ending in mind, or did the ending evolve?
Now, the ending, I knew the ending before I got to the ending.
All right, all right.
I mean, I wrote the ending scenes, and then much of the middle part had to be rewritten at various
Sure.
times. But the opening hook, the inciting event, the opening hook and the climax were known long in advance.
And the plot is obviously a key part of your book, but let's talk about character development.
Okay.
I mean, how do you get depth in character development? How do you create that?
Well, the hero, Mark Thurman, is sort of the guy that I wished I could have been, and will of course never come close
Let's
to it.
tell our viewers also that you were in the Navy, which is very much consistent with your book.
That gives me a little bit to draw from. I was
Sure.
in the Navy for 9 years, and for the last 2 years I was orthopedic surgeon assigned to SEAL Team 6,
Okay.
or the Naval Special Warfare Development Group. So I was familiar with these people. I knew their routine and the kind of things that were going on in their
Well,
lives.
did some of these characters remind you of people that you know?
Some of them are, and some of them are purely fictional.
Sure.
But some of them are based on friends and acquaintances. They may or may not recognize themselves, but anyway, it was fun doing that. Claire, the heroine of the book, is sort of a character that I greatly admire.
Sure.
I mean, this is a
Yeah.
woman who is intelligent and strong, and very what I would consider very admirable woman that I would love to be able to meet, and roughly based on people close to me in my life. You know.
Right. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
We are ATMC TV, Channel 3 and HD Channel 910, your community channel. At ATMC, we know that fast, reliable internet is essential to connecting our local community to a better future. That's why we're investing millions to bring faster internet to members living in Brunswick County's most rural areas. We call this Project 2019 because in the next 24 months, over 4,000 of our members will have access to internet speeds up to 50 times faster than today. Because when it comes to doing right by our members, it's all about you.
We're back with Dr. Tom Kelso. Tom, we spoke a little bit about how one becomes a writer, and there are different styles, and you have mentioned to me that there are plotters and there are pantsers. Give us that distinction.
So that's very accurate, and there are really two schools of how you go about developing a story.
Sure.
And a lot of writers, and there's a hybrid as well, but there's two basic schools. People that like to write detailed outlines, and they'll spend a lot of time, months and months in preparatory phase of writing, and where they will go through and create a detailed outline of each chapter, each scene of each chapter. So that
And then ultimately they'll fill in the blanks.
It almost writes itself, and then they just go back and fill in the dialogue.
Right.
And then the other school, on the opposite end of the spectrum, are the people that just organically let the story grow. And Stephen King is a classic example of
But
that.
so our viewers will know that's the seat of the pants.
Seat of the pants. We call those pantsers. You're writing by the seat of your pants. Lee Childs and Stephen King are the two most well-known writers that write like that. And people like Ken Follett are detailed outliner. And John Grisham is a detailed outliner. So
You've been a little bit of both, right?
I started out as a pantser because I had no idea what I was doing. And I quickly realized that you will be much more efficient with your writing time if you become an outliner or a plotter, and that's kind of what I am now. On my second novel, I wrote a detailed outline, and it was written much faster.
But for a debut writer, you've had a lot of success. You're published, you're on Amazon, you're hoping to have a lot of success with this book. Tell us how you get from the beginning to the end very quickly. There's a process.
Well, you're gracious in saying I'm successful. I have not yet become successful, but I've gotten some lucky breaks. I found out, I was a little naive when I approached the whole subject. I thought that if you wrote a good book, that you could send it off and an editor or an agent would pick you up and you'd find your way to being published.
But the sheer numbers of aspiring writers prevent that from occurring in an automatic way, right?
It's like trying to become a rock star or a movie star.
Right.
The numbers are daunting, and if you stop and think about it, you'll probably won't start.
Right, right.
So I did. I wrote query letters to about 75 agents. I went to writers' conferences, and just wasn't having any luck. Mostly because of my inexperience. They don't want to take a risk on a debut writer. They don't have the time or the resources to worry about that anymore.
Two quick questions. You have another book that you're working on, am I right?
Yes, the sequel to this book.
All right, give us just a taste of that.
So it's called, the working title is Hyperion's Fracture, and it involves pharmaceutical, corporate espionage, the opioid crisis, and the contender for the Kentucky Derby.
Fantastic. Okay, final question, how to purchase?
So Fractured should be available on Amazon within the month. Amazon has the final manuscript right now, and they're making a page where you can pre-order it, and it should launch, I hope, sometime in March or April.
Tom Kelso, thank you so much, and our viewers, I'm sure will
Jim,
watch
thank
your
you very
program.
much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching this month's show. If you have any suggestions for future topics, email us at atmctv@atmc.com. Join us next time on Our Hometown.